This is Book Splash on Splash FM 105.5 Ibadan, and this is time once again to appreciate books and chat with writers. My name is Michael Olatunbosun, and I welcome you to this week's edition of the program. The book for today is titled Nigeria, Problems and Solutions, an in-depth study with realistic answers to the challenges of Nigeria, written by Pastor Sunday Olagunju. The book was published in 2021 by Sabic Publishers Ibadan. The author, Sunday Olagunju, is a historian and veteran journalist whose journalistic experience spanned stints in administration. He served as senior journalist and later area manager West at Daily Times of Nigeria. He was general manager of the Sketch newspaper between 2000 and 2001. And in 1995, Sunday Olagunju received the Who's Who in the World Journalist of the Year award. The author opens the book by tracking back to the colonial times in Nigeria, when the British colonialists introduced the indirect rule to give the impression of joint rulership with the natives. That was when the traditional chiefs were given some sense of autonomy and made to oversee the affairs of the people under the supervision of the whites. The author thinks that this led to the bastardizing of the African heritage of the people and caused disaffection amongst the people, and led to the Aba riot of 1929. The author laments that the incursions of the British on the Nigerian nation, how at the initial stage the colonialists had run the nation by proxy, essentially through the Royal Niger Company up to 1900, and much later ruling the country directly for another 60 years, promulgating 5 constitutions during the period. Thus we had the 1922 Hughes Clifford Constitution and 1947 Arthur Richards Constitution, the 1951 Littleton Constitution, the 1954 MacPherson Constitution, and the 1960 Independence Constitution. The author thinks that when Nigeria got her independence in 1960, it was only political and not economic independence. So the question is, how much of design and planning did the natives who succeeded the British put into rescuing Nigeria economically? Or who then is to blame for Nigeria's nagging woes? In fact, the author puts the question this way, I quote, "But did Britain really pillage or degrade Nigerian resources such that after close to 6 decades of independence, Nigeria has been grappling with all manners of woes, ranging from circumstantial to man-made and situational problems also?" End of quote. Here is the crux of the matter. The author intermittently employs the question discourse in this book, Nigeria, Problems and Solutions, to diagnose the problems with Nigeria. He recalls the prognosis of some analysts that socio-political problems of Nigeria stemmed from the first coup of 1966, and that from then on, Nigeria had been on a descent to rudderless, directionless journey, even till now. So continues the author's quest of interrogating the reason it has been difficult for Nigeria to evolve a unique political system that suits its disparate ethnic and tribal population, or why it is possible that only 8 or 9 states in Nigeria are viable, even though the system is patterned after that of the United States of America. The program is Book Splash on Splash FM 105.5 Ibadan, and the book we're discussing is titled Nigeria, Problems and Solutions, written by Pastor Sunday Olagunju. In this book, the author explains that one of the key problems in Nigeria is the lack of peace. He states that a lack of peace is a key barrier to progress and development. He writes, and I quote, "Anywhere you go in the country, you find restlessness, heightened commotions, and unbridled tensions, all suggesting an atmosphere of complete absence of peace and quietude among the general rank and file of the people. Ethnic nationalities and religious bigots have contributed to have field days." End of quote. And he asks why stopping this has been impossible for the government and the people. The author then analyzes the key factors that threaten the peace of Nigeria with a view to proffering solutions. In this book, the author highlights the myriads of the problems that beset the nation Nigeria, such as lack of unity, inadequate development, and injustice. In chapter 6 of the book, the author discusses the aftertaste of the Civil War of 1966 to 1970 as one of the factors that still haunts the nation. It's still Book Splash on Splash FM 105.5. I have the author of the book, Nigeria, Problems and Solutions, Pastor Sunday Olagunju. Welcome to Book Splash, sir.
Thank you very much.
Let's start with this book. Why did you write the book in the first instance?
I wrote it simply because as a Nigerian, I should be concerned about the problem of the nation. And as an historian and a journalist who have watched by the side over what has been happening and vis-a-vis what has been happening in other countries of the world. Mentally, we are not docile. But what has happened to us, why we could not rule ourselves successfully. And I decided that a lot of people had written, like Peter Enahoro, the late Areoyo Yebola, Delibi Oyama, but all they had written were just mere expositions. You know, in this book, there are about 22 basic problems which confronts Nigeria. Nobody, no author has ever touched up to that. And it is only when you identify the problem, you can know the solution.
So identifying the problem is key. But you said that no author has taken time to highlight the problems of Nigeria. Many of them probably had been scratching the surface or had been focusing on just one of the problems. You said 22 basic problems with Nigeria.
Yes.
And one of those things that you started with, I want to go back to the introduction of this book. And you were asking the question about why it has been very difficult for us to get on our feet as a nation, Nigeria, since the white men vacated the land.
Yes.
What exactly is the problem, or what exactly is your own finding about the kind of leadership we have had since 1960?
The issue is that when the British left, discovered that the people handed over to were not too knowledgeable. And that's why what happened then, they were cautious leaders. And they did a little what they could do until the January 15, 1966 coup. You know, the five majors who staged that coup had a vision. And the irony of it is that that vision was aborted because they were not given the chance.
And they were military men.
Yes.
We used to say that military government is an aberration.
Yes, military government is an aberration, but at the same time, at the level at which we were then in Nigeria, it couldn't have been an aberration because there had not been any government who could have been an example. Yes, there was not.
That's why the fact that people continue to talk about going back to the parliamentary system that was on at that time, in the 1963, and so on and so forth.
The issue is that all what we had done up to that time was trial and error.
Wow.
System of government. And there's a nation as big as Nigeria cannot be ruled on the trial and error. You know, I quite agree that the Balewa government did what is cool, but if you look at the level of Balewa himself, was a grade 2 teacher. You know, by the time he took over, and the NPC won because of the majority, not because they had the best human being. And as a result, but what I said is that the majors, if they had been given a chance, they probably will have charted a course for Nigeria, which successive government will have taken over. Then again, that the manner in which we attained our independence. If we had attained our independence by going to war, a leader could have emerged.
Oh, wow.
And would have learned a lesson. You know, what stood the South African in good stead was because they went to war. So and as a result, by the time they came out of that war, there was a nationalistic ceiling. And that they pointed out that they must build a nation where there will be justice and equity.
So the fact that we did not fight a war to gain our independence did not presuppose that we did not have leaders. You know, post-independence, you also said that the military men who seized power in 1966 January
yes,
also had good vision.
Yes.
So, well, they did not fight to, you know, attain independence for the nation, but they thought that some things were not running well, and they needed to intervene, and they did intervene at that time. Okay, and then there was a counter coup, and then the nation went back, you know, on descent until we landed into the civil war, and it looks like we have not healed. You also wrote in your work that the aftertaste of the Nigerian Civil War still, you know, rings around us. as one of the big problems. What exactly are the problems with the Civil War that we have not been able to put the Civil War to bed in Nigeria?
For example, after the Civil War, there was go 1-3R, the reconciliation, rehabilitation, and reconstruction, which was not really thoroughly done. As of today, an average Igbo man has not thought that he has aligned with Nigeria. And up to today, the bogey of the war continues to haunt them. And then there are a lot of opportunities we lost during the war, which if we have had good leadership, very knowledgeable military men, they could have capitalized on it. And today we will have been a technologically developed nation. But we lost those opportunities. And as of today, because, for example, like a time when the one said, our problem was not money. Abi? Our problem was how to spend the money. And that is a statement that carry a lot. It then means that you had money, but you don't have the idea of how to use it. And that has been a major problem in this nation. And it was the beginning of corruption. When people amass money because they don't have an idea of what to use the money for. If people had money and they use it for what it should be, people should not suffer in a country like ours. And Ibori, I was just reading the paper now about how much is taxed abroad, and look at such money, and yet Nigeria went abroad. That's what the major problem we had was issue of leadership.
You also talked much about leadership.
That the issue is that major problem. Self-delivery, we could not discover ourselves. As of today, we could not discover ourselves, who we are. Where are we going? How do we get to where we are going?
I will come back to that self-discovery question. And it's also reflective in what you have here.
Yes.
You wrote here, the question on the lips of most observers of Nigeria's contemporary politics is, why is it difficult for Nigeria to evolve a unique political system, even if homegrown, to suit its disparate ethnic and tribal population?
That's it.
Basically, we have patterned our, governance system on the American presidential system.
Beautiful.
It seems not to be working for us.
Basically,
that's the question you are asking.
Yes.
Why are we not also evolving a system that suits us?
Beautiful.
Why has that been very difficult? Even across Africa, you find that, it has been trial and error in terms of political system.
Yes, the issue is that the three ways of governance. You govern by consensus, Then you govern by consultation. You govern by realignment. Then when we agree to do a thing and we go ahead, we will move mountains. But today we can't agree. That's a major problem we have. As a nation, we cannot agree that this is what we want to do. We have a 2014 national conference, The lot of brilliant Nigeria gathered and came out with a resolution. Today, that thing gathered dust there somewhere. Because there was no agreement. In the last 5 years, we've been talking of restructuring. Even the president talked of it, but who is to move the idea?
You said no agreement.
No agreement.
The 1914 amalgamation comes back to, mind. A lot of people said that we were forced together and that we should be able to sit down to talk about whether we want to remain together as a nation. I mean, when the North and South were amalgamated, into one Nigeria, I began to ask the question about why it has been difficult for us to sit down. Why?
That's a very brilliant question. The amalgamation, many Nigerians blame the amalgamation, but they could not. Because by the time the amalgamation took place, who are the Nigerians who are knowledgeable and of age? Apart from Abat Macaulay, who was 50 years. Awolowo was born 1909, Zig 1904, Ahmadu Bello 1904, Tafawa Balewa 1912, then Enahoro 1923. They were all infants. They were just infants. So there is no way they could have challenged the British when it was amalgamating. But as good as that be, after 60 years, 1914 till now, by 2014, we were 100 years, Abi?
Yes.
And after 100 years, the constitution of the amalgamation lapsed to the extent that one would have expected that convocation of 2014 will be a sovereign conference where people discuss whether to remain together or not.
But the government at that time said that the unity was not negotiable, that it was a no-go area.
That is part of the poor and weakish leadership we have. Gorbachev, when, for example, there were 15 nations that gathered together after the Second World War to form USSR in order to combat USA. After more than 15 years thereafter, they were realizing that only Russia was developing among those, and they found it as an injustice. And when Gorbachev came, he called a meeting and said, that union, we should dissolve it. And that's how by 1990, USSR was dissolved. Until today, I think they were happier for it. If we know that this union could no longer go ahead, but who to bear the cat? That is the problem we have. There is no strong leadership that can come up and say, okay, who wants to continue with this union? If you believe that this union, you can't go and continue with it, call on the UN, the United Nations. And on the Surround Conference, they dissolved the union. Okay. So now nobody will go to war. And that's exactly what happened in the North and Sudan and South Sudan.
But they've never been the same again.
They can never be the same in the sense that...
Look at Eritrea and Ethiopia. Look at all these nations. They have never been the same.
The issue is that they could not be the same immediately. But as of now, there are people who are happier for it. An average South Sudan is happier, even though things may not work well, but he has a hope.
All right. You talked about lack of peace as one of the nagging problems of Nigeria.
Yes.
And you said that you wrote here, anywhere you go in the country, you find restlessness, heightened commotions, and unbridled tensions, yes, all suggesting an atmosphere of complete absence of peace and quietude among the general rank and file of the people. So you believe that if we are able to forge peace, we will be able to develop in this country.
There is no doubt about it.
But look around you. Even this week, abduction in one school in Kaduna State. You have bandits everywhere. You have Boko Haram. You have bandits. You have terrorists. You don't even know how to delineate these groups anymore.
Beautiful.
They're almost looking like the same.
That is
everywhere you go, kidnapping and the rest of it. So there's a complete lack of peace.
Beautiful. There is a complete lack of peace, and peace is an indices for development. Wherever there is no peace, there will be no development because people cannot think rightly. Professor Wale Soyinka said something sometime that there must be a meeting to adjudge whether Buhari could continue as a president of this nation, because the man thought that it doesn't seem that there is somebody at the helm of affairs. The nation doesn't seem that it's being governed. Because all these, everywhere they had men and all the rest like that. Even the AK-47, which he has now given another, is a belated one, because all those people too will come up with another areas of tactics again, But when a government is unable to govern and is unable to give people peace, that government has lost the probability of being a government, because the major aim of the objective of a government is to give the people peace. So there is lack of peace in Nigeria, and that's why we are not developing.
You talked about a lack of unity as one of the banes of the country, Nigeria.
Yes.
It looks like we are even more divided at this moment than we have ever been in the history of this nation.
But basically, that's a very good question, because, for example, when you look at a typical American president, he becomes a statesman immediately he wins an election. He put down his party and rule the nation until after another election. But our president has not done that. Our president has been a party man up to now, even in appointment and all the rest like that. And those are some of the issues, even those close to him believe that his appointment in this nation has been one-sided. And as a result, injustice and inequalities continue to reign. And as a result, there is no reason why where there could be a unity. Even those, for example, the other time the wife said, even the people who are getting appointment from him, but people who didn't work for him. And which then means that people who work for him were not compensated.
So we are running a government of compensation.
That is it. Look, that is it. And at the end of the day, you discover that if, for example, the other day, the neighbor nation was writing an editorial that the EFCC chairman had been coming from one side of this country. Are there no intelligent Nigerians and in other areas that all about 15, almost how many of them, 11, has come from a particular other northeast? Yes, till now. And no, a president is supposed to be a statesman and not a party man.
Could that be why you are talking about incompetent leadership here? You wrote here that the greatest challenge facing Nigeria as a nation is lack of good leaders. Leaders that can steer the ship of the state to destination and goal.
That is it.
It is competent leadership that makes a nation great.
That is it.
But Nigeria is also a great nation, isn't it?
Nigeria is a great nation. Greatness is in various forms. Because nobody will say his nation is not great. But we who are inside know that things are not right with Nigeria. Tell me of any president or any since military rule that has left without complaint. No, tell me of anyone who has left without a complaint. Nobody. Obasanjo could have tried, was bogged down by third-term issue. And as a result, the rubbish is 8 years.
So how can we make it possible that we'll, get people who are competent enough to run Nigeria to that desired plane?
That's a very good one. The processes of election in Nigeria is faulty, to the extent that if the processes of the election are thorough enough so that the best are appointed and elected, things will work well. But our processes of election throws up the average people, because one is a corrupt processes. People with bags of money and all the rest, vandalism and all the rest. Why it shouldn't be? If the process is thorough and the best people come up, they will perform. But the best people are rubbish because, one, they don't have what it takes for the average people who have the money, who knows their father and this and that to come up.
So we need the average people to understand some of these things that you're talking about.
They need it, but the best, no nation send the second 11 to a competition, Abi. But all the while, for example, look at the Greek. The Greek people were the one who founded the democracy, and they classify people to 3 categories. Abi, you have the idiots. The idiot is not a mental ability, but because of the brutal way in which they govern. Then you have the tribe men. Those people who see everything from the prism of their own tribe. If your tribe is not there, then you are not happy. Then the citizens, And up to now, the citizens have not been able to govern Nigeria up to now. That third category. Our leaders have been selected from the first and second. Up to now, the idiots and the tribe men. And those are people who are characterized by injustice and all manners of brutal governance.
Okay, let's link this to what you are saying now.
Yeah.
You also talked about inefficient political system.
Yes.
Naturally, the way we recruit our leadership also speaks to the system that runs the political space in the country. How can we cure ourselves of this malady?
For example, the issue is that when Babangida came up with a political system during his own time, the SDP and NRC, whereby everybody will be a joiner. Nobody will own Abi. And you discover that it works for some time. But the political parties we have now, there are still fathers there.
So we have to get rid of the fathers.
No, yes, their word is law. They are still there.
So we have to make our political system so open that everybody will belong.
We belong.
And the parties will be funded by the people.
Exactly. Not by a single individual. Who will confiscate the party thereafter. And as a result, they choose people on their own platform.
That was the pattern that the action group used. Where, there was subscription by members. Yeah, and the money from this was used to run the party.
And those people have voices. And that was one of the reasons that Ganiyu Daudu had to step down for Jakande during the Fourth Republic, 1999.
In this book, Nigeria, Problems and Solutions, Pastor Olagunju talked about lack of patriotism as one of our problems. You find a lot of people who say this country is finished and let's just see how we can get out of the country. Americans will say that, they are Americans. Even the British will say, God save the Queen. We don't seem to have that mindset about Nigeria. How can we reverse this?
Beautiful. We cannot, because a government that does not contribute to your growth, there's no way you can identify with it. And government represents a nation. The other day, an American was kidnapped, and a whole lot of the American force came to come and rescue a single person. Can Nigeria do that? And if you see an average American, say, and I'm an American, he won't tell you whether it's from Nebraska or from New York. You say, I'm an American, you know. And we are waiting for a period when an average Nigerian will say, I'm in Nigeria, not I'm from Isoko or from
how are we going to get there?
We will get there when we have a good government which is involved in the welfare of the people. For example, a child who have gone to private school throughout up to the university level, who has not owned the government anything, will he have any cause to think of the government?
So you are going back to governance?
Yes, it will not. That leadership is still leadership problem. For example, we were at the University of Lagos, and then they said they were paying bursary. The day they paid that bursary, we all gathered about 50 or so. We were praying for Ondo State. You know, because of that bursary alone, because it's an identification. That is, you know, how we will not be patriotic. If the state has come to ask us to come and spend 6 months to come and do something, we will go. Because he paid his dues on us.
We don't have quality representation.
We don't have. For example, even in the National Assembly, there are people who have been there in the last 3 years who have not even sponsored any motion because they don't even know how to do it. And yet they were elected.
Pastor Olagunju, what is your key message for Nigeria in this book?
Yes, my key message for Nigeria in this book is that we must do away with a mind that Nigeria cannot disband. Yes, we can. You know, the issue is that we have parried this problem for too long. And if it will be possible that if the national leader cannot solve the problem of the nation, then let's invite the UN to come and discuss the way forward for Nigeria.
Pastor Sunday Olagunju, thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you very much. I'm grateful.
In this 59-page book, the author successfully explores the Nigerian conundrum. The book contains 23 intricately developed chapters in which the author successfully prescribes solutions to them. And that was my appreciation of the book Nigeria, Problems and Solutions, and conversation with the author, Pastor Sunday Olagunju, in this edition of Book Splash. I'd like to invite you to join me for another moment on the program, same time next Saturday on Splash FM 105.5. In case you have a comment or query, you can send me a text message 0805-699-8676. Or send me a mail, Olatunbosun at splashfm1055.com. You can follow me on Twitter at Mike Tunbosun. My sound manager is Victor Daudu, and my name is Michael Olatunbosun. Please read the book today.